Alright, welcome back to TCG. So let's go, I feel like opening a pack or two. Go see if I actually ended up getting any of my trades. Izzy still hasn't gotten those Espeons from me yet. So I traded a few cards for, foil cards for non-foil, but that's about it. Yep, that looks like the only new trades. So, let's go into our collection and open a few packs for the fun of it. See if we have any new friend requests. We got 2. Let's accept those. Alright, let's open a few packs. So what do we want to open? I think X and Y. Got 28 of them. Alright. Let's open 3, because I like having it a nice round number.
What?
Alright. Simisage, Torment, Solar Beam. We have a Skidoo. Skidoo? I don't know. Super Potion, Fennekin, Benelli, Poniard. Okay. I think we're getting to the point where we've owned most of the cards in the XY thing. Oh! Hello! Yes, please. Xerneas EX. That's a brand new one. So it's Breakthrough, 60 damage and 30 to a benched. And then X-Blast, which is 140 damage every other turn. Damn. And then a Bidoof with Hyperfang, which does nothing if you flip a coin. We've got a Hard Charm. That'll go good in that deck that was suggested for damage reduction. Actually, that's our 4th one, which is perfect because you can only have 4 in a deck. And then we've got Special Energy, or that's the Rainbow Energy. Voltbeat, a Voltorb, Fletching, Slugma, Panpour, and another Fairy type, so we actually might be able to make a Fairy-based deck. And let's go for the last one. A Manoir. Mental Trash, opponent flips 4 coins. For each tails, he or she discards a card from his or her hand. Ooh, this is going to go in my discard deck. Distortion Beam, flip a coin. If heads, the opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. If tails, your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. Wow, there's no downside to that one. Cloyster. Oh, and the Upside Down Inky. I told you, I keep getting the first form every time with the advanced form. Ah, the same Bidoof, the same Voltorb, the same Poniard, the same Skidoo, an Illumise, and the same Fletchinder, something like that.
Fletchinder.
And a Cloyster, Clamp Crush. Flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed, and discard an energy attached to the Pokemon. Spike Cannon. Flip 5 coins, does 30 damage times the number of heads. Might be a good one for the Victini deck. Unfortunately, it's not water-based. Alright. Well, you know what? 24 is a nice round number, too, because it's 2 dozen, so I think I can satisfy myself with that, so let's open one more.
What?
I'm trying to justify not having the...
It's 10 cards, so that would be 40, wouldn't it?
What do you mean?
If you open 4 packs, that'd be 40, wouldn't it?
Right.
So where'd the 24 come from?
I have 25 XY packs.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and that was worth it. Mega Venusaur EX.
Oh.
That's actually my second one, too. Crisis Vine. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. This card is unstoppable. Unless you do something special to it, this card is unstoppable if it gets to attack. Because paralyzed means it can't attack, so it keeps taking poison damage, and 2 hits from this will kill it. It is vicious. And the challenges begin.
You want to send me one?
There is a new Pumpkaboo with Confuse Ray, another Hard Charm, Max Revive. Same Skidoo. Every pack has had one of these guys. I now have 4 of them. And an Electro to go with all those Voltorbs.
Now, is Mega Venusaur EX, do you have to evolve a Pokemon to get it, or...?
Yeah, so the Megas...
So you have to evolve Mega, or
you.
Venusaur EX, basically.
No, you can actually evolve a regular Venusaur as well.
Ah.
But yeah, you do see that it is evolves from... Oh no, evolves from Venusaur EX. Really? You have to have Venusaur EX in order to do Mega Venusaur EX. Luckily, I do have one, but I have 2 EXs, or 2 Megas and 1 regular. That's stupid. They should have made that require the whole 4 chain, because it's so powerful. 230 health. I mean, this thing is nuts. Alright. So, I actually don't think I actually made any new decks.
Anything you need to test out?
Actually, hold on, let me see if I have any new decks. New, I didn't actually end up making a new deck. Still haven't managed to finish the fossil deck. I'm still looking for more cards on that one. That one's hard because there's not many fossils in the current sets. Sword and Shield, I actually noticed on this, I'm actually going to do a couple quick tweaks. So I have a bad evolution line here, because it's a 3-3-4. Because I was thinking, oh wow, this ability to switch between these 2 stances is really, really cool. It really isn't. The Buster Swing is actually far, far better than doing 50 damage and not taking attack, because there's so many Pokemon with special effects. So I'm actually going to do, I'm going to drop 1 shield form down and add another... Oh, do I not have another?
I think you only had the 1 sword.
I think you had 2.
Oh, I only had 2 and 2. Okay. Well, let's buff these up to 4 and 4. I think I can, yeah, do that. So that way we at least have a few more Pokemon we can actually get out of that line. Because that helps a little bit. Actually, no, we'll go with 1 less of these, 1 less of the middle phase, and 1 less of this, and we're actually going to need more search. Because that was the big issue, is I kept having not enough Pokemon. So I think Hypotoxic Laser doesn't really fit with the deck's theme. Let's get some more searches out.
I'll go ahead and fight you with my pure Dark deck, that way it's not as broken as the Dark Steel one I have. To test out that deck if you want.
Yeah, and then, let's see, all that else looks pretty good. I need another good Pokemon. Let's see, it's mostly Steel Energy. Let's see if we can actually find something. Let's do
you
Steel
don't have
damage. Axew, Dialga. Yeah, there's not really much else I have in my collection.
Types.
I'll take on challenges in a minute.
Do you have a Bisharp?
I do.
The Steel type?
Mm-hmm.
He takes 3 colorless energy, and his attack does 40 damage and does 20 more damage for each steel energy attached to it.
That's not the one I have. I've got the Wicked Jab for 20 with a chance of paralysis on coin flip, and then Metal Claw, which does 70. Are you checking standard or not? Because I keep my decks standard so I can actually use them in real tournaments.
Yeah, I guess I can look at standard.
Let's see if I... no, I don't actually have the non-standard one either, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, yep, he is non-standard.
Oh, okay. Alright, well, that might fix this deck up a little bit, gets a little bit more search, but... Oh, there is one thing I wanted to do before we do challenges. I was going to show you guys how to improve a deck.
There you
so
go.
I'm going to start off with one of these basic decks, and I'm going to build a deck that fixes it.
I say you build one for the fairy.
Yeah, the Resilient Life Fairy deck is going to be the first one I fix. So we clone the deck. Alright, we got Resilient Life 1. So let's go into Standard, and let's edit it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix the name. So Resilient Life Improved. Xerneas is kind of cool, but I like the Rayquaza going because the green is cooler looking. The deck box, it's going to be a fairy. And... not really many good ones for a fairy type, is there? I'll just go with the red box cap. Alright. So, the things that these decks do wrong. Theme decks do very, 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 very many things wrong. And so this will help you improve your regular decks by seeing what stuff they're doing wrong. So let's look at all the cards they have. So we have a combination of 2 different types. So we have Psychic types, we've got some normal types, and we've got some Fairy types. So some things that this thing is doing correctly. So we have a couple legendaries. They have a cool power that helps work with some of the other Pokemon, because you can add psychic or add fairy energy and attach it to the Pokemon. So that helps power it up. That's a useful power. Also has a Whirlipede, has a very, very powerful attack, because you can get crazy with those coin flips. Let's see. It has a couple evolution lines. This one's kind of cool because it has another ability with the fairy energy, so there's some synergy back and forth, where this one doesn't have any special or status conditions. And then we have an Aromatisse, which means you can keep shuffling fairy energy around a Pokemon as much as you like during your turn. Mr. Mime's also fairy type, so here's the issue. Jigglypuff. Fairy type. It's a single Pokemon. Where is the Wigglytuff? There isn't one. So that's one of the big issues. So let's look at all the different Pokemon that we have in here that don't have an evolution in line. Ekans. Where's the Arbok? Phantom. Where's the Trevenant? Pumpkaboo. Where's the next stage? Spoink. You know, and on and on. Very, very, very bad to have these Pokemon in here without a second evolution form. Other things it does wrong. Pokemon balance. Look at how many different lines. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Or hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different lines. 30 total Pokemon. Most decks actually only have between like 12 and 20 Pokemon. Usually most of them are around 16 to 18. So way too many Pokemon. Energy, it's got 18 energy. That's a pretty decent number. Energy is usually from 14 to 18. Trainer cards is way, way down. Trainer cards is usually about twice this amount. And there is not very good trainer cards. Flip a coin, draw 3 cards. Half the time those will fail. And you waste 1 slot in there. Super Potion, I'm not a fan of them, but they're working. They'll work. It has a bit of draw, so I'll give them credit for putting a couple draw cards in there. Fairy Garden synergizes with everything else. Anything that has fairy energy attached to it has no retreat cost. It has some searches. It has an Evo Soda. Max Revive, it's kind of useful, but it's not the greatest in this deck. And a couple Professor's Letters for good energy draw. So it's not one of the worst decks as far as that goes. But the downside is, when you want to make a good deck, you actually have, you want a very consistent deck. 2 types of energy makes it twice as hard to actually get the right energy you need to complete all of these abilities. Admittedly, most of the psychic types they have only need 1 psychic energy, but still it's really hard to draw the psychic energy when you need it. And sometimes you need a fairy energy, and you get that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a decision. Are we going to make this into a fairy deck, or are we going to make it into a poison deck, or a psychic deck? And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into the psychic, or the fairy type, because I really want to make a fairy deck. So we'll go in, first thing we'll do, no psychic energy. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to go in, and we're going to decide whether we want to keep or get rid of these lines. Alright, Doduo and Dodrio. Let's see if these guys are worth keeping in, because they're colorless, they'll work with any deck. Rage, 10 more damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. That's okay. Endeavor can do up to 90 damage. But it's still kind of a weak line. 70 and 90 health is not a lot. Double hit, I mean, and it's very, very random. It's not a very consistent card. Alright, so let's get rid of all of the psychic types that don't have a complete line. So let's get rid of our Ekans. Let's get rid of our Phantoms, Pumpkaboos, Spoinks, Venipedes. Well, the question is, do we want to keep the Venipedes in? And without Psychic Energy, they're not terribly useful. And most of their abilities are poison damage. It doesn't really work with what we're going with the Fairy type. Because the Fairy types we have gives Fairy Energy, keeps special conditions off of Fairy types, lets you shift Fairy Energy around, and then the trainer card that lets you have retreat. So we kind of want to go with the fairy theme. You don't always have to do a deck where it's just the same type the whole way through the deck, but a lot of times there's some natural built-in synergy. So we're just going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of the Doduo, because there are better cards for that. Alright, and then let's get rid of the Max Revive, the Roller Skates, the Super Potion. I'm actually going to switch those out because I like the other cards' art better, but they do the same thing. Alright, Professor's Letter. Always great for getting energy when you need it. We We actually have a couple Pokemon that have some energy abilities, but I kind of like having 3 to 4 of these in a deck. Fairy Garden. Do I have a second Fairy Garden? No. So we can't put a second one in there. 2 fields actually let you re-overwrite an opponent who overwrites your field, so sometimes that's good to put in. We do like a lot of search, so I usually do 3 of that. We're going to have a few evolution lines in here, so I think we might want some more on the soda. But let's first just get our energy back up to 18, so we have those cards reserved. I'm actually going to be switching out the energy types in a minute, but this is kind of the mental process to go through. So the good types of cards to have are stuff that lets you draw. So Bianca's will let you draw until you have 6 in your hand. Sharon's will let you just draw 3 straight up, and they're the same as the Turnio, but I just like the Sharon artwork better. And then the Professor Juniper and Professor Sycamore, they do the exact same thing. I usually go with the Professor Juniper because I like the art better. And so that covers those. And we'll probably add some more tool cards and stuff in later, but that just gets our basic functionality reserved a few slots. Alright, so we're going with a fairy theme. So let's take a look at what other fairy Pokemon we could possibly add into this deck, and which ones work. First example is Xerneas EX. You don't have to add an EX into your deck, but Xerneas, or any EXs, add a lot more punch to your deck. So we're going to go with one of those just for the sake of adding one of them. So here's another issue they sometimes do. 2-in-1 evolution chains. So say you have 2 Swirlix, which pretty much suck, and you only have 1 Slurpuff. And you kind of have the issue of what happens once you have one of these on the field. This is a useless card then. So what a lot of times you'll do on decks is you'll either do a 2-2 evolution line, and sometimes I'll do a 3-3-2. Like I'll sometimes get rid of on that very 3rd form because it's less likely to go all the way to the 3rd form. I don't have a second on the Aromatisse. So what I'm actually going to do is, you usually don't want to have a one-off line. This one has a very good ability, so I think that one actually justifies having 2 Spritzes, even though they're pretty bad. So I actually don't have a lot of Fairy-type Pokemon to choose from. So we're going to keep the Mr. Mime or not? Let's see. Massage will let you heal damage from a bench Pokemon, and Slap Down can do up to 80 damage. It's a pretty good one. It's a little expensive for 3 attack, but it's not a bad first drop. However, the Granbull does 50 damage up to 90. So I mean, I think it's actually just a straight up. The heal is nice, but you don't often use the heal. I don't know. Depends on your strategy. You can work around it or not. The Snubbull, I think the Snubbull Granbull line may be a better line to go in. But first,
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do EXs count as basic Pokemon?
Almost all EXs are basic Pokemon.
What, like Chandelure EX? Would that be considered a basic?
You can play Chandelure EX straight from your hand.
So would an Eviolite work on Chandelure?
It would, but the issue with the Eviolite, so Eviolite is a 20 damage reduction on any basic Pokemon. It's inferior to the Hard Charm, because Hard Charm is 20 damage reduction for all Pokemon.
Yeah, true.
So the only time you'd ever want Eviolites in your deck is when you never have any evolution forms. But otherwise you'd want the Hard Charm. Because then, like say I put it on my Swirlix, now it's taking 20 less damage, I evolve it up to Slurpuff, and now it's taking full damage again. So it's better to do with a Hard Charm. Alright, I do like having Jigglypuff, so let's see if we can keep Jigglypuff in the deck. So we actually have 2 different Jigglypuffs to choose from, and we actually have the Wigglytuffs, so we can actually put some of those in the deck. So we have a choice of Body Slam, 20 damage, flip a coin and it's paralyzed, the enemy's paralyzed, or Roll Out with 10, and Heartfelt Song, which discards a dark energy attached to one of your opponent's active Pokemon. This is a very, very niche attack, and it requires you to have a dark deck against you. Not exactly the best. Also, when you look at their health, 70 versus 30, I'd go with the one that takes another turn to power up, but is got a significantly better ability. So let's put... Oh, we already have 2 of those in. Alright, so now the question is, what Wigglytuff do we want? Gather energy. Search your deck for a basic energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. This is good because this will let you get past the 1 energy per turn. And it has Hocus Pocus. Defending Pokemon can't attack during opponent's next turn. 60 damage. That's a stun lock ability. That is a really, really good ability. So we're going to put that one in the deck. And Wigglytuff. Balloon Barrage. This attack does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to this Pokemon. It can do a little bit of damage. And Double Edge, which does 10 damage to itself, but is a 90 hit. So let's actually fill in one of those as well. So now we have a 2-2 line. The question is, do we want a 3-3 line? So I'm not really feeling the Mr. Mime, honestly. I mean, it's okay, but it could potentially have very low damage and has very low health. So let's pull the Mr. Mimes out. Let's actually go with one more Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff. So that's 16 Pokemon. And do we want to add the Snubbull and Granbull line? You know what? Okay, let's actually go back down 1. Let's go 1 to 2 and 2 there. And let's do a 2-2 Snubbull Granbull line for 18. And we only have 1 of each of those. Because this is more health than the Mr. Mime, more damage, same energy cost.
Ghost, I didn't build a deck now. Would you face me with the one you're building?
Yeah, I will take you on. I have to do a test run for it.
Good, because I'm building one based off of the same deck, too.
Alright. So then we have our energy. So, energy cards, you have to do energy after you've picked your Pokemon. And stop sending me challenges. I'm not doing challenges yet. I wish you could have like a checkbox where you say don't accept challenges yet.
Actually.
Alright, so. Still a little iffy on the 2-1 there, but that's actually a pretty useful ability. I wish I had a second one because I definitely 2-2 that, because that is just great. I also put a second Xerneas EX if I had one, but I only have one. Alright. So generally you want to avoid one-off cards because they can end up in your prize cards or not where you can actually search for them. Especially if they're a very key mechanic to your deck. This deck doesn't really have a big mechanic. It's just mostly just fairy types with hard-hitting fairy type abilities. Which is fine, but I kind of like having decks with a little bit more cross-line synergy. But this works. So energy-wise, let's look at some of these Pokemon. So we have a 2 colorless attack cost there. A 2 colorless attack cost there. 1 colorless, 1 colorless, 1 colorless, 1 colorless, and 2 colorless. So we have a couple Pokemon that have the 2 colorless, but not a lot. So I think the best way to do this would be maybe 2 colorless energy. I like having the double colorless because it gets you powered up quicker, but it becomes less useful if you don't have a lot of Pokemon that can use it. And there's no reason for us to put in the Prism energy or Rainbow energy because we only have fairy types, so they're only going to need fairy or normal energy. So we've made this deck a lot more consistent just by having the type energy used pretty consistent throughout. So now we have a few cards left in our deck, so let's make the trainer cards better utility. So I always like having 4 Sharons. It is great card draw. You can use it any time because it doesn't have any limitations or conditions. You just draw 3 cards. Juniper, it's always iffy. I don't like discarding things with Juniper. It always seems to come at a bad time, so I actually tend to avoid them a little bit. I like Bianca's. I'm actually going to get rid of the Juniper. And I actually prefer Shauna. Because you shuffle your hand back into your deck so you don't actually lose them. You get 2 less cards, but you don't lose any cards in your hand. So it tends to be a little bit more generically useful. I like Colress. I usually have one of them because he's good late game only when there's a lot of bench Pokemon. So now we have draw card, draw card, draw card, draw card. So there is 10 total draw cards. Well, almost 10. 9 there. And then we have 3 things that'll let us draw energy. Our Pokemon are moderately energy required, but there are a few that lets you get energy out or switch energy around. So we don't need quite as many. We might put another Professor's Letter in. We've got a lot of evolution lines. We actually have, we have 4 different evolution lines. So let's actually put a couple more Evo Sodas in. These Evo Sodas are always good as long as you have a base Pokemon out. You can search for the specific thing. So we actually don't need quite as much of the other search. I like having 3 Great Balls, because it's search the top card of your deck. There's no discard with it. It's a very efficient one. Alright, we got 5 cards left to fill in the rest. So, these Pokemon tend to be pretty decent health. They're not fantastic on health. The damage seems to be good. So I usually like mixing in some tool cards that are a little bit of a mix of both. I'm actually going to get 1 less Great Ball, because we have the Evo Sodas, so many of them. So I like having Hard Charms, because that helps you with some resistance. Macho Brace is nice, because that gives you some extra damage. And then I really like the Rock Guard Rocky Helmet, because it reflects damage. Rocky Helmets aren't really great. The Rock Guard is my only A-Spec... Actually, I think I have 2 A-Spec cards now, but the other one is... Yeah, the other one is the Victini-specific one, so we don't have Victini in the deck, so there's no point in putting that card in. I like having 1 town map in, just to let me see prize cards, because that can give you a great advantage when you need it, but having more than 1 is pointless. Tool Scrapper?
Unless that town map is in the prize pile.
It happens occasionally. 10% of the time. Tool Scrapper is really useful. I always have 1 of those around because there's sometimes when you need to get rid of a Rock Guard or something like that. And now the question is, do we want a switch card? Switch cards are useful if you have a lot of retreat cost on your Pokemon. These Pokemon actually are not too bad. They're mostly 1 and 2 retreats. Wow, even the Xerneases are just 2 retreat costs each. Plus, with our Synergy card, the Fairy Garden, anything that has Fairy Energy attached to it, which will be everything, has no retreat cost. So we don't really need a switch. Which gives us room for one more card. What do we want to have? Not really sure what'll go really well with this deck. I do like having energy retrieval, because that gives us the ability to, if something dies, we take 2 energy back out of the discard pile. It's always handy, because that actually extends us to even more energy. So let's actually reduce the amount of energy we have in the deck by 2, and we can actually put another energy retrieval card in and fit another one, because this is essentially adding 4 energy to our deck. So that'd actually give us a total of 20 energy, but it's dependent upon us drawing that card. So we got 1 more card we can stick in there, and I actually kind of like putting more muscle bands in. They're kind of useful to be able to draw extra cards. I don't see any of these other ones being particularly synergistic with it, so let's put another muscle band in, and then let's look at our final deck. So we've got our Jigglypuff Wigglytuff line. We got 2 and 2 there. We've got a Snubbull Granbull line, 2-2. We've got a 2-2 Swirlix Slurpuff line. We've got a Spricey Aromatisse, or Spiritsy, whatever. So these ones are utility cards. These ones are not likely to be on the front lines doing damage, because Draining Kiss doesn't do a lot. Fairy Wind does a bit, but this one is a really, really useful power ability, especially when combined with the Fairy Circle. So these 2 are not likely to actually be doing the damage. So most of our damage will be done by the Granbulls and the Wigglytuffs. And the Xerneases. So basically the strategy of our deck is going to be to get a Xerneas out and start pumping it full of power. More or less. And then have these guys there for support. We've got a lot better collection of trainer cards. We have a good balance. So 18 Pokemon, 26 trainer cards, 16 energy. We've got lots of draw. We actually shifted all of our energy draw to Professor's Letters items, so we can use those whenever. So we can use one of those and a draw card on the same turn. We have some good tools, and our energy is not split between 2 different types, so it's a lot better. All of our stuff has evolution lines to their final forms. You can actually dead end before a final form if the second form is good enough that you'd only want to go that far, and then evolving it actually makes it worse. The Scolipede line was a good example of that. But I think we have a good deck. So let's save it, and let's try it out. So, who am I challenging?
Mitz.
Alright, let's...
Escorting.
Okay. Let me see if I can find you on my friends list. There you are. And
You can send a standard because I made one.
all right, we'll do a standard with... Where is our Resilient Life improved? So we could have added also in some normal types in there, but for most part, that seemed to be a pretty good deck. It had a lot of stuff going for it. We'll see if we need Kangaskhan's for calling in basics or stuff like that, but I think we're okay.
Yeah, there we go.